Yes, I was a couple days off. Good morning, good morning, everyone. Sorry for the delayed start. There's some folks that are experiencing some pretty difficult traffic delays, and so we're pausing a little bit. We've got our approval of Finance Committee meeting minutes, September 17th, or when those meetings occur. It is. It's on. You can't hear me?
Maybe see you a little closer.
Oh, okay. All right. It's intense this morning. Is that better? Oh, there's a difference. I apologize. If we could have if everyone has had an opportunity to review the September 17th meeting minutes for Finance Committee, and if there are no objections, I'd like to move forward with an acceptance of those minutes. Do we have a second? All right. Those are accepted. All in favor? Opposed? All right. Minutes are approved. We have our vendor management audit. Clark Schaefer is going to do a presentation.
And they're going to run late, like 40 minutes late.
Okay. Okay, absolutely. If we could have Norman Bowie with our internal audit. Sorry, I'm trying to get you before you sat back down.
Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I just want to give a quick update on where we are with the internal audit, status on engagements, and also where we are with completing and remediating observations. So if you want to move forward 2 slides, please. Can you hear me? You want me to hold it like this? I'm kind of tall. I'll dip down a little bit. Okay, so for the so we kind of go back to 2022 is when we try to start recapping and giving a summary of what we've accomplished since then. So we've had 15 total audit reports. With those, we had 50 observations noted. And out of those, 82 of them have been, actually, this should be updated, it should be 84% of those have been fully remediated. So we're doing a great job of clearing up our reports. And just to kind of give you context of the severity of the type of observations we've had, out of that 50, only 12% have been high, 42% have been moderate, and 34% have been low. So not a whole lot of severity with the type of observations we're being noted, but with the ones that we do have, they are being cleared up, and we're basically making sure that we're holding all groups accountable to getting those items completed. If you want to move forward to the next slide, please. So just kind of give you an update. So vendor management is on there because that's the most current audit. So you kind of can expect that those observations won't be cleared up fully, but there are some that have been cleared since we've produced this report. But the one that's lingering is succession planning. That's one that's over 100 days old. Part of that observation was having our senior leaders create plans and role responsibilities for their groups. Still a couple out there that haven't completed those yet, but talking to Ben, he's got a couple that have turned those in. So hopefully we'll get that completed within the next month or so. So moving forward. Any questions about any outstanding observations before moving forward? Okay, if not, just move forward to current audit. So right now so audits are kind of broken into 3 phases, our planning, field work, and reporting. We'll say with the ridership audit, we're kind of in the reporting stage, working on the draft. So we'll hope to have that done in draft sometime this week, hopefully to present it in the next meeting. Bridgestone tire contract that's currently in the field work stage, hoping to get that wrapped up soon. So that might be able to be presented alongside with ridership, doing the same finance committee meeting. Currently knee deep into our risk assessment process. So for those who don't know, it's where we kind of reach out to all our senior executive leaders, assessing the risks of the metro, and we take that feedback from them, use it to create our audit plan for the next 2 years. So once that's complete, we'll present that report along with our audit plan probably sometime in January. And then currently, Clark Schaefer has kicked off for accounts payable audit. That's starting actually this week. They were due to travel delays. She's coming here to present the vendor management, but also do a kickoff with the walkthrough with the group, and with the expectation that will be completed with that audit in December of this year. So that's kind of where we are with the current audits that we've started. Move forward 2 slides. So
Could
upcoming.
you remind the board on the scope of the ridership audit? I know you're writing it and everything, but I think
The scope?
everybody would be very
yes.
excited to see that report.
So the scope of the ridership audit, we pretty much take a look at the whole system of how we count, how the systems work, how the maintenance of those systems are actually configured. Because just like any type of technology, it does break down. So we kind of look at to see how that impacts our numbers as well. We look at operationally what operators are doing, what passengers are doing, marking those numbers, and we're taking real-time observations just to see if what we're reporting lines up with what should be reporting. We compare it to the NTD standards. We look at the timeliness of submitting those reports. Some other things that we look at, just the whole overall internal control process of, even though Access and Metro Now are a very immaterial number in total to the ridership numbers, we've looked at Access and Metro Now, looking at opportunities and providing feedback in those areas as well. So kind of looking at everything. The only thing that we kind of really didn't focus on as much is kind of comparison to the Farebox GFI, just because it's inconsistent with the type of information we get back, so we didn't feel it was reliable to compare APC to GFI at this point. But that's kind of an overall scope of what we've taken a look at with the ridership.
Yeah, and one thing, Blake, just to say, they Norman's team actually physically were riding buses and counting the riders coming on and off on, was it 50 routes?
Yeah, we did 50 trips that we observed through, and they were kind of randomly selected. We targeted a few just based off of number of riders, but we tried to cover weekend routes, evening routes, and a lot of some express routes, and also some other heavily populated traffic routes as well.
Excellent. And so we'll hear more about this next month.
That's the plan.
All right.
plan.
I'm legitimately excited about it, and I know that means I'm a nerd, but I think the rest of the board would like to see it. Yeah.
Thank you. So moving forward, we've actually we're starting badge access security. It's more of a review, so we're kind of in the phase of planning a new badge access plan. But what they wanted to reach out to kind of look at what we're currently doing and provide a summary of things that we're doing well, things we're not, to help them plan the better. So when they do roll out the new badge, so we're having a kickoff meeting today with that, and hopefully to have that done. It should be a short engagement, not too much to look there, but hopefully be done end of November. We have fixed access as a TBD, but likely we're moving that because I know the person responsible for that area, he's kind of going through an inventory of fixed assets, so we didn't feel it was the most appropriate time to start fixed assets while he's in the middle of kind of getting a hold and tracking down everything. So that's kind of where we are with the upcoming audits and current audits. So with that, kind of open up to any questions or other comments you have about anything we presented so far. All right.
I just had a quick
go ahead.
question. For the vendor changes or some of the things that we need to do with that audit, when a vendor is responding and they are a protected or they are a minority business or something like that, is it by certification that it's verified on that application process?
I would have to yield to John on that question.
So the question is, do we certify vendors? Do we verify certification when we onboard new vendors? The answer is yes.
Okay.
We ask for a copy of their certification documents for all brand new vendors. We are in the process of updating our vendor performance management system, and part of that system will be to obtain recertification or certification renewal documentation as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Norman.
Thank you.
Any further questions for him? Nope. All right. Moving on. Mr. Walker.
All right. Well, Blake, you'll be happy. We'll go into some more nerdy things here with some numbers. So here we go. This is, we'll start with our high-level summary that we touch on every month here. Our total revenue came in at $13.2 million, which was unfavorable to our budget by $418,000. And the theme for the revenue, the surplus deficit numbers, anything like that, are pretty much going to be tied to the sales tax difference. And we'll go into that. We have a separate slide on the sales tax, but basically that's the driver of these numbers for the month. I guess that would be our theme. Total expenses came in favorable at $13 million. Favorable, is good news for expenses when they're lower than budget. Obviously, lower than budget for revenue is a bad news number, which was unfavorable up there. You net those two numbers together, comes up with our surplus, which again is unfavorable to the budget, but again tied to the sales tax difference that you'll see. Next item here on the summary is our ridership of 1.26 million riders for the month. Right in there, Gwen. 1.26 million riders. And, I'm not really one to steal the thunder from other groups, but, I kind of am a little bit today. We'll get more details on this in the ridership report and the planning and ops. But according to my numbers and some of my research here, I think this is the most riders thus far in 2024 for the month, and the same for 2023. So this is the greatest ridership month that we've seen in 2023 and 2024 for the month. So some great news there. Slightly favorable to the budget. Going down to the revenue line, total operating revenue is slightly favorable to budget by $38,000, and that's really tied to the CPS revenue with the students. Non-transportation favorable to budget by $36,000. That's the same story as prior months with investment income. County sales tax unfavorable to budget by $492,000. And we'll have some details on that coming up here in a couple slides. Grants were on budget, dipping down to the expenses. Wages and benefits, right in line with our budget amount. Fuel and lubricants were unfavorable to budget. They came in at $724,000. While that's unfavorable to budget, that's pretty much in line with the other months, the last couple months that we've seen. But again, it was unfavorable. Parts and supplies and all other, both of those are favorable to budget by pushing out spending and just basically spending less. Go to the next slide. So we've already discussed most of the details behind these numbers, but if you focus in on the ridership number on the right side, you can see that we're unfavorable year-to-date of almost 372,000 riders, or 3.6%. We're closing that gap. When I looked at July, we were 5% under budget in total for the year, 4.1% in August, and now we're 3.6%. So we're trending in the right direction there, everyone, which is good news. Fare revenue, operating revenue, really nothing more to touch on. We've hit that. There's some ups and downs in there, but really kind of spot on to the budget for the month and year to date. Non-operating revenue, again, the story is sales tax and investment income, those two offsetting each other. And we go down to the expenses. Again, these were once again favorable for the month and also continued to be favorable year to date. And looking down below, you can see where we have an actual year-to-date surplus of $2.1 million, and that's in comparison to a budget deficit of $42,000. So continued good news with our year-to-date performance and monthly performance. All right, this is the same slide that we see. It's our 3-month revenue trend that we showed July, August, and September. Nothing unusual here. You can see the CPS revenue being a little larger. That's a highlight, full month of CPS there. And these revenue figures are all in excess in both July, all three, July, August, and September, are all greater than they were last year at this time. So favorable trends here that we're seeing on fare revenue. Now we go to the my favorite slide, which is our sales tax slide. So we can nerd out here a little bit here. The 10636 number, I want to kind of reframe everything here. The sales tax is on a delay. So we have our June actual numbers that we received from the state, and those we book in September. So it's an odd scenario there. But looking at the 10636 that you see there for June, which was the sales tax we've received, that's greater than any month that we've seen this year. So we're trending in the right direction. When we look at last year, Our June figure was 2.5% greater than it was in 2023. One thing I want to point out, this is the third highest month that we've seen since we started receiving sales tax revenue dollars. So very impressive number here. I know it was under budget, but still the third highest month. The other 2 months that were higher than this were December of 2022 and 2023. So X the holiday buying season, this was the greatest, the largest number we've seen. So some good news there for us. Go to the next slide. Here's a look at our expenses. Same story that we've seen in the past. On the far left, the big blue line in July, that was the one-time items with our CBA agreement. The other ones are all reasonable when you look at them. Fuel and lubricants there. The uptick in the other line, the red line in August, was primarily we had some unscheduled maintenance that we had to do at the garages, along with our Kings Island event that we had previously talked about. But other than that, all the expenses are in line and nothing unusual or unexpected that we see there. Now, yeah,
What's the percent allocated to the EF? Is that quarterly or is it monthly?
the employment fund?
The amount
Empower-
allocated to the empowerment fund?
It's going to be a $420,000 number annually, but now it's going to be, instead of it going to a true separate entity, we're just going to be paying for that ourselves. And so we had some money kind of hangovers, and the 6 and 18 were the new spend for the month. And Andy, if you have any other color you want to add?
Yeah, if you recall the conversation that we had about the funds that were in the 501c3 account associated with Everybody Rides Metro board and foundation, the plan was to spend down those funds first in 2024, and then when those funds were gone, we would begin providing reimbursements to social service agencies directly from SORTA expenses, and that's now happening. The 501c3 dollars are gone. We are continuing to provide reimbursements based on the program rules, and we'll do that through the end of the year. We've allocated, and we have not yet discussed the 2025 budget, but we've allocated that $420,000 of revenue and $80,000 of overhead expense associated with the program for future years, but we'll talk about that come budget time for 2025, if that's helpful.
Any other questions before we move on? All right, thank you, Natalie. Next slide. This is the same view that we have, kind of highlighting our current cash and the obligations that we have that will kind of support this cash balance. Just so we kind of reframe ourselves and understand that while we have $178 million in the bank, it's not really all unaccounted for. And this kind of lists out what is the expected obligations that we have. Really no material changes from last month. It's the same view that we've seen, which brings us to a little over $4 million of available type funds.
Just because I think I probably ask this once a quarter and forget in between, all other obligations is generally what makes up that 6.5 million?
So there are a couple pieces there. One is from our risk perspective.
Okay.
We have, we're self-insured,
Yep.
so some of that is in there. I believe that's the bulk of it.
Okay.
Is that where the bicycle path is?
Oh, it's
Oh,
the
yeah, we
Oasis
also have an
funds.
obligation
Okay.
of, for easement
Yep, got
purchase
it.
that's in there as well.
Got it.
Correct.
Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. We keep asking, maybe the answer would be a different one. You never know. I've got it written down now, so if it changes, we'll let you know. Any other questions on here? All right.
Just to sum up, though, so the county sales tax was significantly less than budgeted.
Correct.
Right? And we had seen a trend coming up to where we expected it, and then this was a bit of a surprise for June to go down. But overall, the year-to-date numbers, we look okay.
We look okay. I think, Mr. Etheridge, the way I would present it, I wasn't here during the budgeting cycle, but when you look at the true dollars coming in, we are seeing it trending upwards, and the comparisons to prior year are trending in the right direction. So in June, if we look at our September number, it's 2.5%. Our June number is 2.5% greater than last year at this time. The May number was, call it, a little over 1% difference, greater than last year. So we're trending in the right direction. We're still on track with we're using the UC numbers for our budget, and that's what we'll use for next year. And I think we'll see more of a refinement. We have more history in our sales tax. So the budget for next year by month, you'll see more of a looking at month by month that we've received these monies in 2020, 21, 22, 23. We have the history to trend that probably a little bit more surgical than we've done in the past.
So one of the things I'll add is, as you watch, that sales tax number is the largest line in our budget. So we watch that extremely closely. And your leadership team here at Metro, we make adjustments based on trends that we see happen. So we're spending a lot of time looking at our expenses and how do we manage our expense line as we see what happens with the sales tax. This is a significant decrease over what we expected in sales tax. So we are making adjustments on our expense side to make sure that the organization is sustainable long-term and that we can deliver 100% of the promise in reinventing Metro.
That's very helpful.
That is.
Yeah, because you see that number and then you start looking through it and trying to figure out
Yes,
why is that not look worse when you get to the bottom line.
that's what your leadership team does. This is something we're extremely concerned about, and we know that we have to make adjustments. And we're working on the long-term plan to make sure we're sustainable long-term. But the number one assumption is we will deliver on every promise in reinventing Metro.
You can certainly see. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask, how is the county accounting for it, what they're reporting?
I'm not sure.
You know, I'm just,
There are challenges for anyone that counts on sales tax to run their businesses.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are challenges for all organizations that use sales tax.
yeah.
And
Love it.
I think to add to that, and Mr. Walker mentioned this, is that the trend is favorable, right? If you look at January and you see that we had a $1.2 million delta between budget and what we actually saw, if you multiply that by 12, we were looking at a $14 million gap. Now, if you look at our year-to-date number at $2.8 million, if you double that number, we're looking at, a $5.5 million gap. If the trend continues, we think that, that gap is going to get smaller and smaller throughout the back half of the calendar year where we're seeing sales tax. So to Daryl's point, very aware, very cognizant, we want to react, but we also don't want to overreact and not do the things that we need to do to grow ridership. So I think we feel pretty optimistic about how we're going to end this year.
Yes.
And we are making adjustments now
Yes.
in terms of how we approach next year.
And understand, a $5 million shortage in revenue is not a small thing.
Right.
It is not a small thing.
And then when do the salaries kick in?
They have already.
They've kicked in. So
Yes,
So we're seeing that in.
we're seeing it now. Okay.
yes,
All right.
yes.
I mean, and to kind of echo what Mr. Haley and Mr. Aiello said, I mean, this is top of mind for us. I mean, we manage the business. We're looking at this. It is the number one revenue item that we have. And it's something that we know that when we see a change in that figure, it's something that is a change in what we've estimated, then we have to adjust elsewhere to be fiscally responsible.
Andy said something I was going to say, but I definitely see it trending. I think we'll see some uptick once we look at December, with the previous 2 years being their highest on record with our sales tax. So I think we'll end up seeing that in Q1. But I think we're going in the right direction. We appreciate that.
We
work
hope
that you
Blink.
guys are putting in.
We hope Blink will help as well.
Yeah, I did have one question though. When we have, so I do have
Candy is too high.
one question in terms of how so when we get someone like Light that will pay for ridership, basically that sponsors a bus that pays for services so that we're not charging, are we still counting how many people get on, and do we know what those numbers are if they had paid versus what?
Yes.
Okay. Will we see it? Can I see it? Okay. Okay. All right. Are we ready to do vendor management now? Okay. All right. Our vendor management audit, please, with Clerk Schaefer. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. First, I want to thank you for your flexibility in the scheduling this morning. My name is Courtney Nutt. I am with Clark Schaefer Consulting. Just a very quick introduction, as this is my first time presenting to the Board of Trustees here. I joined the firm about 6 months ago, right around the time that this vendor management audit was getting kicked off. But prior to that, I've got more than 20 years' experience in this risk and controls advisory space before joining the firm. So I will get into our presentation. Within the management summary, I know that you all have had this in the past. I'll skip through this section and move more towards the scope and methodology page, if you wouldn't mind to move to that page. Ultimately, what we are doing is looking at a combination of two things. One is compliance with established policies and procedures here around vendor management, but then also looking at best practices around vendor management and making recommendations as we see through our testing. That testing was a series of review of existing policy and procedural documentation, as well as interviews with key stakeholders here that are responsible for carrying out the vendor management and oversight function, and also some testing as we saw necessary throughout the process. We use a ranking scale in terms of our observations, with high being something that we believe management should remediate as we feel that that has more of an imminent risk of loss to the organization, all the way down to informational, which again are really a lot of best practice type recommendations that would just enhance the overall internal control environment. So I will go ahead and get into our recommendations. We had two low observations, 3 moderate recommendations, and 1 high observation during this audit. We'll start with the lows. First, we had policy and procedural periodic review and approval. We, again, reviewed a number of policy and procedural documents, and in some cases, those had been reviewed, but it wasn't formally noted that there was a revision history on those documents, and in other cases, they had not been reviewed within a recent period. So we have a recommendation that there be a formal revision history noted on each document that would indicate the date at which it was revised, summary of what the revisions were, and who was revising that document, just for consistency purposes. Second observation relates to vendor inactivity. This is really a best practice item, but certainly does reduce risk, because if there are vendors that are in the system that have not had payments made over a length of time, going ahead and marking them inactive reduces the risk that they could be selected for payment and inappropriate payments made. Our third observation, there were a number of documents that we reviewed, including the vendor performance manual, the vendor performance policy, as well as the Metro procurement manual. A couple of these documents were newly developed, and so we had some general recommendations as we reviewed through those for enhancements, and then also noted some inconsistencies between the Metro procurement manual and the newly created vendor performance manual that should be addressed. We called those out, and as you can see in the report here, management has a plan in place to address those matters. Observation number 4 is a moderate observation. This one is with regard to monitoring the internal environments of your vendors, but doing so on a risk-based approach. So there are certain vendors, for instance, those that are providing fuel or key parts for SORTA, that have a greater significance than other vendors. Taking a risk-based approach and identifying those vendors and doing some due diligence around their financial solvency, their ability to continue to serve SORTA's needs, is something that we have recommended in here so that SORTA can continue to provide the services it needs to do so for its constituents. Our 5th observation is around system access for vendors. Depending upon the services that are being provided, some of your vendors are granted access to certain of your systems. We recommend incorporating into the policy a review and a process for identifying when those projects have concluded and going ahead and revoking that access so that you don't have any unnecessary risk associated with outside access to your systems. And then our last observation is around new vendor approvals. There is a process in place, but it is manual. It is paper form. And in 13 out of our 15 vendors that we selected that were added during our scope period, there was no timestamp to evidence that the approval actually occurred before that vendor was entered into the system. So this is more of a documentation exercise, but still something that's very critical to ensure that all new vendors have been appropriately vetted, gone through the process, and have been approved before being added to your system and eligible for payment. We are on site today as a part of doing this presentation to go ahead and kick off our next review, which will be around accounts payable and the procurement card process. But at this time, if there are any questions, I'm happy to entertain those.
You talked about revoking the access to the vendors so there wouldn't be risk. Did you find any problems where something did happen where?
We did not test that. It was more around what was in the policy.
Ms. Clark.
I just had a comment. I really love the fact that you all were looking at our major vendors and considering their financial solvency. I think I wouldn't have necessarily thought that would go into this, but excellent work.
It can really be if you think about it from the full vendor population, it can be a very daunting task, but not all vendors are created equal. So some are much more significant to SORTA's operations than others. It's really narrowing down to that population of vendors and assessing that risk to the organization and their ability to continue to serve in that vendor capacity.
And then I would assume that that'll have implications in the future for whether or not they are going to be continued vendor. Okay.
Yes.
All right. There are no further questions on that.
Ms. Clark, just maybe just one comment. I really appreciate Clark Schaefer, Norman, and his team in conducting the audit. Just a little bit of context. The vendor performance function at Metro, specifically as a functioning unit within our procurement department, is relatively new. And Norman mentioned the risk assessment that we do every 2 years. When we do a risk assessment, we're looking at functions within the organization that could pose risk to the agency. One of the things that usually gets discussed in that risk assessment are newer functions, right? When we're standing up something that is relatively new, it's a good time early in that process to have somebody come in with fresh eyes and look at how we're doing it so we can kind of correct and fine tune before, we build ruts and we build habits and things like that. So you'll notice in some of the management response that we are still working through finalization of how this unit is going to function within the organization. So the timeliness of this was appreciated by staff.
Chelsea, I got one question. So on vendor management, when the nature of a vendor changes during the contract period, so let's say we have an MBE that gets acquired by somebody else or a vendor who sells, how do we wait till audit time or when do we reevaluate the vendor?
I think John can help answer that question.
And do they have a responsibility to let us know?
Yes. Okay, so the question was around a vendor who's doing work for Metro being acquired by a company who's not currently doing business with Metro, if I understood the context of the question correctly. Our vendors are required under the contract to notify us of we call them novation changes. If there's going to be a change in the ownership of the organization or a change in the name of the organization, they have to notify us of that change. Then we make appropriate steps through the contractual process to, first of all, determine, does that vendor still have the capacity to continue with the requirements of the contract? If the answer is yes, then we make administrative changes to our systems to reflect the new name or the new ownership of that company. If the answer is no, then we terminate the contract and then go back out for solicitation. And I'm sorry, Ms. Chelsea, did you have a question as well?
I do, John. I'm going to make an assumption that the majority of the new vendors are the diverse vendors, the MBB.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
I'm going to assume that many of the new vendors that we are working with are part of our minority participation.
Yes, every year we onboard new vendors that we've never done business with before, and a portion of those vendors are smaller disadvantaged enterprises.
So are we so this is really good timing for this report?
Yes.
Because we cannot allow a deficiency, especially visually, you're looking at minority participation here as part of our deficiency that are not meeting the edicts of our policy. So that's where I was trying to be. I'm being sensitive right now.
Yes. Absolutely.
We got this mic sharing over here. Thank you. We got this mic sharing over here. So we'll move on to the approval of investment of funds report.
All right, thank you, Ms. Clark. Thank you, Natalie. The first report we're going to look at is our operating report as of the end of September. Really nothing significant to discuss here. The balances remain constant from month to month. Yields are going down. The overnight yield above, it's 503. It was 541 last month. Total yield was 450, was 457 last month, as you can see. So a decrease there. When you look at it, rates have gone down. You had the Fed tightening a little bit. Then there was a hot jobs report a couple weeks ago that pumped rates back up. But just to show you how wildly they've been fluctuating, I'm looking at the 2-year T-bill. At the end of August, it was 393. At the end of September, it dropped to 365 after the Fed tightening. On October 4th, after the jobs report, it was back up to 393 again. And as of this morning, it was 395. So yields have been moving around quite a bit. We're keeping a close eye on that. And when we see opportunities, we'll go out on the curve and be prudent with our investing, taking into consideration the capital needs and other spending needs that we have. Go to the next page, Natalie. This is for the MTIF fund. Again, the same story. The 507 above was down from 540, and then the total yield of 470 was down from 483. So again, their balances remain constant, up slightly, but again, really no surprises here with the yields and what we're seeing with the fluctuations. Any questions? All right, thank you, everyone.
All right, can we move for an approval of those investment of funds report? Second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. All right, moving on to the approval of the 2024 SORTA meeting schedule.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Clark. This is what we typically do is we ask the board to approve the following year's meeting schedule. That allows us to post the schedule publicly on our website and make sure that everyone has an understanding of when we will meet. This schedule reflects kind of our current operation, if you will. The committee meetings meeting on the third week of the month, and the board meeting on the fourth week of the month. Finance at 8:30 on Tuesday, planning and ops at 9 o'clock on Tuesday. Ad hoc happen, as noted, ad hoc when there's an opportunity, and the board meetings rotate between morning and evening every other month. Happy to take any questions or adjustments as the board sees fit for our 2025 meeting schedule.
Usually one of the most controversial.
Right. Right. We could table it.
All right, if there's no serious pushback here, then we'll move on, we'll move for an approval.
Chelsea, I do have a
Sorry.
question.
Yes.
I remember at one point we talked about making the infrastructure, bike and right-of-way committee more frequent with the BRT work that's happening? Do we feel that that is necessary to do in 2025, or are we okay keeping it as needed?
Speaking for staff, we're okay keeping it where it is, understanding there's going to be more of them.
Okay.
Based on whatever activity is going on. I don't think we're, at this point, my opinion, that we need to set them on a schedule, but we do need to understand there will be a lot more of them next year based on the activity
Okay.
of
That's fine.
BRT.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you. On that note, I was looking at Adrian. Do we need more personnel committee meetings? And they're not standard, and we probably met one time last year, in this year. So I think that you need to really standardize that committee opposed to making it an ad hoc committee.
That is the pleasure of this board. However, and whenever you would like to meet.
Where Sarah is, there's a need to really meet more than just, all of a sudden we got an emergency kind of thing. So if
I'm
you're
in full
willing to
agreement.
That's a great idea. Let's do it.
Oh,
At least quarterly.
yeah, I would
Mandated.
say at least every 3 months or
Absolutely.
something. There's got to be a,
Did you want it on the schedule or?
well, you calling it ad hoc. And again, those meetings that are consistent, that I'm not sure I want to call them ad hoc. If they're standing committees, ad hoc is as needed. Standing means we need to meet. And I'm of the mind we need to meet.
Not to further complicate the need to have more meetings, but I do feel like there's going to be a lot of work to be done in governance next year as we start thinking about leadership transitions. Like, I really do wonder if we need to spend a little bit of time looking at our ad hoc committees and figuring out what's the right cadence for these things to get them on the books to plan for them. Because I agree with both of those points that there's more work to be done, and we end up ultimately bulking everything into the 2 standing committees and go, oh, we need a quick meeting over here, but I don't know that that's the right approach.
I third that. Fourth it. Is there a way that we could get the pass in the past like 12 months, what actually has occurred in terms of meetings, and then come back together and discuss new schedule?
This is great. I'm going to recommend we table this for next month. And I think it's great that it got out in October. We don't have to have it until the end of the year. So let's come out with a schedule. I hear a desire for regularly scheduled committee meetings. Note these are on Thursdays. That's the approach that we took. So that can be a little bit more challenging for people's schedules to have like 2 meetings in 1 week. So I think it'd probably be good to have it planned out, right? So you can have it on your calendars at work or whatever your life is going on with. So why don't we table this, return to it in November with a very specific plan.
We'll get together.
Sound good? So
Okay,
do I need to move that? I'm going to move the tabling unless there's any objection.
That's fine. I think what I'm hoping that we come back to discuss in November is just like hearing from staff, what is that appropriate cadence? Because I don't want to have meetings
That's what
just for
we'll
the
do.
sake of having meetings.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's exactly what we'll do.
I mean, by hindsight, I learned about a process, an internal process at HR in the newspaper. We wait, how things work. And so I think we need to be a little bit more knowledgeable about the interaction, especially when a reporter going to call.
I'm not going to say that right
So
now, but that's what we're going to recommend.
that's my thinking. So I thank you for your table.
Sure.
So if the board is okay with the staff, we'll reach out to the chairs of the committees, as well as the chair and the vice chair of the board. We'll bring back a recommendation after we talk to several of the board members for next month for discussion.
You know who's the chairs of all those committees too.
Yep.
So we'll have all that information at next month's meeting, including the information from the opinions, rather, from departments, as well as board members that are going to be spearheading those efforts for those meetings, and then also with the just the history in terms of meetings and what's occurred. All right, so that is tabled. We have.
Can I just note one final thing?
No, I am trying to get to. I'm just playing. Yes.
I do. This is the only board I'm involved in where the two standing committees, every member of the board is on both standing committees, and so to the extent that we are going to add more regularly scheduled committee meetings, I'm of the persuasion that it's our job to read the packets. It's our job. There's good discussion that happens in these meetings, but if we're gonna beef up some of these other committees, we should consider whether we need to have two committees of the whole while also having ad hoc committees, because there's work. It makes the board meetings, frankly, fairly superfluous once we get there. And so it's just something to consider as we think about adding additional meetings.
Pete, that's exactly what I was going to say.
I thought we might be on the same.
So all of us many of us joined this board, and they wanted full attendance at the committee meetings to support the committee work and the employees as we learned how the processes go within SORTA. I think a lot of us that are new, it is important to come to the committee meetings so we get a sense of how the finance flows and et cetera, not just have a consent agenda at the full board meeting. But as we build out the agendas for the committees, what Pete's saying, I think there's a lot of merit to that. Like who should be attending everybody can attend every committee meeting, but the requirement to attend every committee meeting, that's the part that might change a bit.
All discussion points noted. Moving on, Ms. Adrian, for the approval of updated healthcare.
Morning.
Good morning.
You approved last month the healthcare program for 2025. Thank you. This particular enrollment management services vendor should have been a part of that approval process, and it was left off. So I'm bringing it forward this month. They're the vendor that works with our employees to find other options for healthcare. So I'm bringing them forward for a one-year contract for $80,000 starting in January of 2025.
Any questions or discussion? All right, are we going to move for an approval on this one? Okay. All right, moving for an approval. If I could get a motion?
So moved.
I need a second. Thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, moving on with that. That has been approved. And with that, that concludes our action items. Any new business? Hearing none, we can move to an adjournment at 9:22.
One quick question. Do you want all that on the consent agenda?
Yes, please. Yes, we're going to move that all to the consent agenda. Do I have to do a vote on that? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, planning and ops commences at 9:22. Here we go. So there's only one procurement item on our agenda today, so relatively short agenda. Yet several briefing items. We had the state of Metro, of course. We run that on it's important, I think, for the board to know we run that on like a 2-year cycle. As we've approved issue 7, it's good to report out to the community publicly what's happening. So thanks for all those who attended. I think we had over 300 attendees at the State of Metro report out, and a testimonial that was quite compelling from what I understand. I wasn't able to attend, but
Best one they've ever had.
is that right? I heard it was phenomenal. So,
Wonderful.
so I think
Party in a party.
great.
Wonderful. I'll speak to that at another time.
All right. Well, that'll come up. So in the good news report, ridership, we'll be talking about ridership, quarterly service quality, and you see the reports that are forthcoming. Preventable accidents, I wanted to note, are are down compared to last year. We're at 1.2 per 100,000 miles. Last year, 1.5 of preventable accidents. So there's progress on that front. So with that, let's look at the minutes from last meeting. Hopefully you all had a chance to look at the minutes from last meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve those. All right, Ms. Robinson makes a motion. Ms. Clark seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so the minutes from September 7th are approved. Thanks, everybody. Our briefing items. Now, turn over to the executive team, the good news report.
All right, thank you, Dan. Let's start where we always start with great job by our employees. Adrian with our most recent employees of the month.
Yes, good morning again. So August Silver Wheel Award winners, Tara Walker. Everybody's very familiar with Tara. We hear every month about the awesome job she is doing with the DBE program and the impact we're making on the community with our minority and women-owned spend. So she has been recognized for all her work there. Thank you, Tara. Next, we have Murby Curtis, who is part of the communications team. And Murby is a force to be reckoned with as it relates to all of the events that we have. She is responsible for a lot of the work that goes behind events like our safety awards and Arts Wave campaign, which happened to double this year in terms of our contributions. She was instrumental in helping HR with the Metro Family Day in terms of the communications that went out to all the employees. So we thank Murby. Next, we have Queensgate operator Ayanna Stewart. Ayanna is being recognized for her OTP at 90.6% and no customer complaints. Always willing to help. She even serves and helps the training team as what we call a line instructor, helping operators as trainees as they get towards the end of their training. Then we have Queensgate maintenance employee Cameron Wiggum. Cameron is just being recognized for his excellent work ethic, and he works well with the operators and maintenance to create a really positive work environment. And then we have Bond Hill operator Nicholas Benny. Nicholas is being recognized again for his dependability. He has about 88% on-time performance and no disciplines, no absences, and no customer complaints. So congratulations to Nicholas. Then we have Tim Mundy. Tim is being Bond Hill Maintenance. Tim's being recognized for the excellent work he does with bus repair and the timeliness for which he completes that type of work. He's positive and friendly, and according to his supervisor, just a pleasure to work with. And finally, Access, we're going to call him Nick K. He has a great knowledge of his job and goes above and beyond in terms of his work, his positive attitude, and his dependability. So those are our Silver Wheel August Award winners. And then next, I just wanted to mention we had our first ever career fair at Access in terms of like we do once a year for Big Bus. It was in September on the 28th, and even for a rainy day, and it literally rained all day, and we did have to pivot a little and move inside. We had over 75 people come out for the Access Career Fair, so we were very excited about that. And we had food truck there and other things, but again, we had to pivot and move inside, but we did get some great candidates out of that. About half of them right now have received offers, and then obviously they have to finish out the rest of the selection process with backgrounds and drug screens and things like that. So that's where we are right now, and I'll keep you updated.
All right, thank you, Adrian. We're going to fill this thin agenda with maybe the longest good news presentation we've ever had, but plenty to get to. Dan already hinted at the State of Metro, our biannual celebration. We got together with nearly 400 elected officials, bus riders, civic and business leaders, and more, celebrating the Reinventing Metro plan and speaking to updates there, the MTIF successes as well. Great celebration, and certainly it was also fun to give special recognition to board member Gwen Robinson at the event. Yeah, and I gathered that you also got eyes on Evie, the new vehicle. We've got a special treat late. There's a special treat later this week. Is that right?
that, I know it's not time for me to talk, but I was amazed that employees got together and just did that, built a semi-bus, whatever we want to call it, but it's really cute. And then gave her a female name, Evie. I love it. Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, go
We
ahead.
gotta
tell.
tell everybody that you'll be not operating but writing, right?
Yeah.
In the parade.
I've been practicing.
See, yeah, that looks good.
The Blink Parade on Thursday.
You're ready for the parade. That looks
Probably
good.
won't see me. I'll be wrapped all up.
It's gonna be cold.
It's gonna be cold.
It's a smooth ride. You'll enjoy it. Thanks also to Greg Landsman, Commissioner Reese, Mayor Pureval, and APTA President Paul Skoutelis for also coming to celebrate with us. Next, it is my privilege to make a very special announcement to the board. Andy Aiello has been promoted to the role of Deputy General Manager. As you know, Andy's previously served as the Chief of Staff, and to say he's been instrumental in our strategic successes and coming together as a strong leadership team is a gross understatement. Andy's been terrific in his 2 years. We know he's going to be great in this new role. In the role, Andy will also be responsible for oversight of operations and HR, which is a very natural, strategic, and functional pairing. So, Andy, congratulations. All right. The hits keep coming. C-Suite Awards. Not many organizations actually have nominees. Even fewer win. Even fewer have multiple winners, and even fewer do so on the same night. We followed up State of Metro by doing exactly that October 10th at the C-Suite Awards. Congratulations to a not present, not pictured changemaker, Brandy Jones. That's how you get out of this kind of spotlight and embarrassment. Changemaker, Brandy Jones, and the architect, the professor, Khaled Shamout. Yes. I had to. Your contributions and leadership help us and the community shine. Congratulations, sir.
I just have to add, and John knows this, but we had the best CEO energy at that entire. Listen, Daryl will be like, all right, we're ready. And we're like, all right, we're all ready. And so on cue we all stood up and we were cheering. We're the only organization that we had the most fun and swept it. It was excellent.
We had fun.
A bit rowdy in the back row as we made fun of everybody else's lack of pep in comparison to ours. Definitely a good time. All right, let's see here. Daryl won another award. Next slide. No. What can be said about Daryl that hasn't been said already? We know what he's about. The community knows. The industry knows. And to paraphrase the great Maya Angelou, people will remember how you made them feel. Daryl, you make us feel grateful, proud. We've been helped by you. We've been led by you. In short, we are better because of you. I think of all the accolades, this one was special. It was special to share that with you, and we'll go off script a little bit and have fun making you uncomfortable by asking you to speak to the award. Yes, he didn't know I was going to do that. It's fun to have the mic.
Most people know I am a son of this city. I was born and raised in the city. I grew up at Evanston, educated in Cincinnati Public Schools, University of Cincinnati. I raised my family here. My first intro into the workforce, where Social Security tax and whatnot, that was 7 miles from my house. And without public transportation, I would never have been able to get that job. The job was as a janitor, sweeping the floors in the warehouse and laying the water hoses out. The bus got me to that job, got me that opportunity into the workforce. Before I left that organization, I was leading that organization. Without public transportation, My path may have been very different. So this is extremely important work for me. We have here at Metro the best board and the best leadership team in the country. We don't say we can't, we say how can we? And the pride that I feel working here, not because of the work I do, but because of direction from this board and the work of this leadership team and every employee that is invested in this community to deliver on our promise and to do things differently and to create these opportunities, not just for us internally, but for every citizen of this region. It is just an honor. It's an honor to be here, and I'm proud to be a part of this organization. And I wish that my name wasn't on here, but everybody else's name was on here, because I haven't driven one bus, I haven't turned one wrench. This truly is a team effort, and every day we figure out how to get it done regardless of what we face. And you're going to pay for this.
It was worth it. Whatever it is, it was worth it. Nice. All right, let's keep it moving with the recognition. Our own Chelsea Clark, not only finance chair, she's now been recognized by the Cincinnati Business Courier as part of their latest 40 under 40 class. We were so happy to celebrate with you. We got to meet your mom and see leaders toast you. So I know it's only 9:30 in the morning and these are safe, but if you have something near you, raise a glass to Chelsea on her well-deserved recognition.
Thank you. I'm getting older, you know. It's happening. My hair's not as big as it used to be. It was actually such a blessed surprise to see you all there. I first had seen Andy. We're milling around and talking to folks, and I'm like, I didn't know we had somebody here from Metro getting awarded. Seriously. And I was like, I'm looking through, I was really looking through it. I was like, I think I'm the only person from Metro. And then I saw Adrian, and then I saw John. I was like, why are so many of us? And then they all came up and they said, we're here to support you. And it was my eyes welled over, because you all have just been instrumental leaders, and the mentoring that I've gotten here as such a young, up-and-coming professional is really, really indescribable to explain how it made me feel, and I appreciate this family so much, so thank you.
Our pleasure. Next up, Khaled has some special announcements about a recognition for his team and their contributions to the industry.
Yes, thank you, John, and good morning. There she is. Well, I have the pleasure to announce that our newly hired, she's been here only 6 months, Senior Director of BRT Planning and Design, Sharon Lacombe, sitting over there, was appointed. In addition to the great work she's been doing on the BRT front, but just a couple of weeks ago, she was appointed as Vice Chair of APTA's Planning and Program Development Committee at the recent annual meeting. And the mission of the Planning and Program Development Committee is to advance the practice and quality of public transit planning and the system and corridor level, to improve the decision-making in the planning and operations of transit systems, and to facilitate and expand transit's link to sustainable development. So congrats, Sharon, on this role, and for sharing your expertise to improve the transit industry as a whole.
Indeed. Thank you, Sharon. Congratulations. We're also pleased to share with the board the recent receipt of $8 million in federal funds through OKI. Thank you to OKI. This will go towards the purchase of 10 new hybrid buses as we continue to reduce our carbon footprint. We were already seeing good fuel returns in terms of fuel efficiency with the hybrid fleet, but we know we've only scratched the surface of what this technology can deliver. Back to Khaled for some BRT news.
All right, great, thank you. So the BRT is moving forward as planned, and we'll be coming back to you probably in a month or two, just to give you more updates on the progress and where we are and the next steps and so on. But so far, it's going as planned. One of the pieces of the BRT is to obviously, design the stations, and to start that, we developed prototypes, 3 options of transit of the BRT stations that we wanted to share with the public and get their input and comments, and then eventually wanted them to vote on their preferred design. So this has been going on for the past 4 weeks. We've had about 23 events. Our consultants went to the different neighborhoods, council meetings, local events, and so on. We had 23 of those. We have one tonight, actually. In addition to engaging the public via social media as well as voting on the web. The participation has been really great. The 3 designs that, and we were asking the public really to comment and vote on 2 things. One is the design, which of these 3 designs appeals to them the most, and also the name of the BRT system. So these are the 3 different designs. The one on the far left is what we call the suspended roof. It gets that name because, and I probably have to look really close, it kind of looks like a suspended bridge with these towers and then the cables. And then the one in the middle is the movement design, just because of those horizontal elements kind of depict movement. And then the one on the far right is the contemporary design. We will be closing the votings at the end of the day today. Things look pretty good. And those are listed in no particular order, just The 3 names that are being considered are the Metro Bolt, the Metro Pulse, and then Metro Queen Runner. So those are the 3 names that are being considered and the public is voting on. So hopefully, very soon we'll come back to you and we'll share, we'll give you an update on the BRT project as a whole, but also on the results of these as well. Thank you. I guess I'm doing the next slide too. Yep. So, yep. Correct. Yes. Yes. I think as of several days ago, we had about almost 2,000 votes. So, yeah.
Maybe, there we go. What kind of one-on-one engagement are we doing with sort of like, I'm thinking here, this is in front of Zola's and in front of sort of that Avondale Town Center, the Holloman Centers in that building. What type of one-on-one engagement are we doing with the buildings adjacent to where the stations will be? 2,000 responses is incredible, but I also imagine if this is going to be right outside your front door, you're going to want to weigh in on that. And are we doing like direct sort of hand-to-hand engagement there too?
Thank you very much, Pete, for that question. Because as we were moving to the next slide, I remember something like, oh, crap, I forgot to mention one thing.
Here for you.
Thank you very much, Pete. So in addition to these, 23 engagements, in-person engagements at events, council meetings, and so on, they actually, over the past month, our consultants walked both corridors and went door to door to businesses and have discussion with them about the designs and the BRT project. That's not the first time they do that. They do that. They did that also previously during the planning phase as well. Thank you, Pete.
That's super important work. So thank you and thank the team for that.
And it's not going to stop there, because part of our future engagement is we'll be engaging the businesses more heavily, and we'll have more dialogue with them, and that's part of the plan. But thanks, Pete.
Can I ask one more clarifier on that too?
Sure.
I'm assuming sign is for some of the bigger stations, and then there'd be kind of a scaled down version for some of the in-between spots. Like, so just kind of thinking of what Pete was saying, some of these areas where you might have like a smaller business that could get kind of covered by the, the size that is portrayed in the pictures, so.
Yes, I mean, I'm going to use this word kind of, with some liberty. They will be kind of like modular, to your point.
Right.
So they will be, stretched or reduced to fit a particular site. All right.
Great.
I mean, this is kind of slide about one of our planning team members presenting at the Hastis Users Group. But it's also going to give you an insight on how we also do planning as well. So a few years ago, about 3 years ago, the board approved us, using purchase one of the sophisticated planning tools that we've been using since very effectively. And as you know, at least once or twice a year, we do some major changes, well, substantial changes to our network, alignment changes, adding new routes, et cetera, et cetera. And in the several months ago, part of the changes to be made to the network, our team led by none other Mark Sam'an, they collect data and they use data from different sources when we're doing these kind of analysis and improvements to the network. And one source was from the Children's Hospital. So they reached out to Children's Hospital because they were focusing on the Price Hill and Delhi area in particular, and how they can move or provide better transportation to these neighbors, to the Uptown, the hospitals, and Norwood. So one of the sources of data was from Children's Hospital, where they asked for the where people live, their patients, at the census tract level, especially those who are on subsidized or free health. So they got these addresses, and those were put, in the mix with the other data that they use, and they applying, all of the, literally sophisticated planning methodologies and tools. They were able to make adjustments to the network, but more importantly, create the new Route 36 that connects Price Hill and Delhi to Uptown and Norwood. And that was a huge success. And you'll hear a little bit more about that on the next slide from John. But that was what Mark presented on at the Hastis Users Conference about a month or so ago in Montreal. And with great success, and they really impressed the audience there as well. So congrats. Thank you.
More recognition and thanks for Mark. Mark represented Metros. We were recently joined by Children's Hospital as guests on NPR's Cincinnati edition, discussing the impact of Crosstown Route 36. And we can talk about economic development and ridership and all those big picture things. We have real human impact in what we do. Through this effort, through this route and this story here, told the story of a mother who shared her experience on Metro so that she could visit her child born prematurely and hospitalized for an extended period at the #1 children's hospital in the country. We have a network that can now break down access problems to that hospital and its network. Thank you, Mark, for discussing that partnership and for representing us well.
John, I was just going to say,
Yes.
I did listen to the story and I thought it was terrific. So you all can probably find it on their website. So go and listen to it. It'll make you feel proud.
Absolutely. Also in October, Metro goes pink. October 19th, we'll be down at Yeatman's Cove at 9 o'clock in support of the American Cancer Society's Making Strides Walk. You'll probably also see on Fridays and weekends throughout the month bus operators wearing pink gear in the theme of the month out there in support of those impacted by breast cancer. So look for those operators, and if you're so inclined, join us on October 19th. From pink to blink, I had to. Don't blink and drive. We have 4 nights of Metro support of the largest event of its kind right here in Cincinnati, with free Metro and access service from 6 p.m. to 12 midnight, starting Thursday, October 17th. If you're going to the event, please use the free park and ride shuttles, either from the Crossroads Church in Oakley or Cincinnati State. And the park and rides, we've got free swag, DJs. In short, it's a party. You'll have a good time waiting on the bus. Thank you to everybody that's making this happen, and the Metro staff that's filling all sorts of shifts throughout RTC and the park and rides as well, to make sure people use Metro and know how to navigate the event. We're also providing free rides on Election Day to remove transportation as a barrier to anybody exercising their right to vote. Free rides system-wide Tuesday, November 5th. And certainly last but not least, we celebrated our annual Old Timers Picnic. You see some of the action shots there. At Metro, we recognize those who have paved the way for us. We recognize those that came before us and did that work. Pictured here in the top left, the man in the center of that picture, 97 years young. That's just a little bit of the flavor and the pride that you see when our retiree group gets together. Thank you for Brandy and team for also capturing that event with some really great photographs. Woo, that's the news.
That's the news. Okay. So even though we only have one action item on our agenda, go ahead, Casey.
Election day. Yeah. Is that all day?
Yeah.
All day. Great. So even though we only have one action item, it's clear that our group, the employees at Metro, are extremely active and doing a lot of great work. So thank you for that report, John. Also, as a side note, I'm sure everybody's happy that my nominated name didn't get submitted as a top 3. I put Cubert in there, BRT, Queen City BRT, Cubert. I thought that was clever, but didn't make, write-in campaign might be afoot. I put that, John, when you put that on Facebook, somebody said Bert, right? And then somebody else said Queen City. I was like, Cubert.
It's on the internet now, so it must be true.
It's on the internet, yes. If you've got an internet, go look at it. Okay, so Mr. Aleo. So moving on to the service quality metrics. Andy, can you lead us through that? Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Treehouse. We quarterly do a little bit of a deeper dive into our service quality and ridership metrics. The number one thing that we've been tracking this year is missed trips. You can see that for September, we had an average weekday missed trip number of 15. If you recall, that is over a total of 2,500 missed trips in a weekday. So we're getting close to our goal by end of the year to be in single digits for missed trips, which would represent 99.6% reliability. So a lot of great progress with respect to service reliability. All this feeds ridership. As you can see, as already reported, ridership is right at budget for the month. We've been pretty steady all year and really optimistic about the trends with respect to ridership. On-time performance continues to be a challenge. You can see for the month we reported out a total of 72.1. We have a lot of new operators in the system. We have a lot of information we can dig into with our ops team here today if you'd like to get deeper into that metric. Traffic congestion, Norwood lateral, all the things that contribute there. We're happy to get deeper if you would like. Fixed route operator headcount, as you all know, is the number one driver to curing our missed trip challenge. You can see a steady increase in that number. We're currently around the 550 number here in October. A lot of that has been due to aggressive hiring efforts on our HR side of things and recruitment side of things. But also you can see for the year, operator turnover has been within target, which is very positive when it comes to retaining operators necessary to grow the workforce. As you all know, it takes 8 to 10 weeks between the first day of hiring somebody to get them safely on the road So it is a process, and it's one that we always benefit from. Any minor uptick in operator retention helps our bottom line with respect to total operator headcount. Absenteeism has been stubborn, but we've been seeing that trend in a positive direction as of late. Miles, between mechanical service interruptions on the fleet maintenance side, as you all know, this board approved a deep dive from a consultant team to get into that work. The consultant team has been here and on site, and again, our folks from the operations world can give you more detailed update there. Preventable accidents have been largely within target all year. Again, this number always sees quite a bit of volatility. You know, one accident, one mirror strike on a pole shows up in this data. So there is a little bit of volatility, but year to date, aggregate, we are on target. Happy to answer any questions about our quarterly service quality metric report.
Hey, Andy, quick question around the on-time performance. Is some of that seasonal? And then is there a strong correlation between on-time performance and ridership?
Yes to both. We do see a seasonal dip in on-time performance with a return to school, right? Traffic's up, universities, schools, it does drive it. So that trend, not surprising. The overall number is still not where we want to be, but you're right on, still seasonal. Typically, we don't see that rebound fully in October either. We do well actually in November, December, and January. So seasonal trends, we expect an uptick over the next 3 months. To ridership, yes. Now, a lot of that will go into how we adjust and build a schedule. But yeah, generally speaking, with higher ridership or increasing ridership on the same schedule, you will see a bit of a delay, passengers on and off. It is a factor.
One of the things that I'm happy about is a lot of the construction around the city is starting to curb. You know, Norwood Lateral being closed, the one lane on 471. It's interesting. It takes me about a half an hour to get to work. They close that one lane on 471. It takes me an hour. So I've tried to get off and take Kellogg. Kellogg's backed up. I've tried to take Columbia Parkway. Columbia Parkway's backed up. Eastern Avenue's closed before you get, into town. We've added the speed bumps all throughout the city. So the traffic flow in our city has changed a lot over the course of this year. So we're constantly making adjustments as travel times change. But now as some of the construction is finishing, travel time is going to be a little quicker. So it's not just our new operators getting them up to speed, working on their on-time performance, but it's also our planning department working on the travel times and setting the schedules right for the travel times. It's something that we are spending a lot of resources in to get our OTP back up. But as the city changes, it is trying, but we're dedicated to getting it done. We're sure we're going to get it done. And as some of this construction starts to end, the lane on 471 is now open back. Norwood Lateral is now open back. And we'll make adjustments. And I think but by the end of the year, you'll see an uptick on our OTP. But all of those things go into one of the challenges we're having with on-time performance now. The other thing, and maybe it might be a good idea to do that at the next meeting, we also compare ourselves to other transit agencies. We're overachievers, so our OTP goal in the 80s is much higher than most transit agencies across the country. We're right about where everybody else is, but that's not good enough for us.
I've wondered for a while how the road calming measures have contributed to OTP adjustments and planning.
Yes.
How do we make adjustments on?
So what we have to do is we have to go in and adjust the travel times and change the time points to what reality is. Our challenge here is we do a pick once a quarter. So to make those changes in the middle of a pick is extremely difficult. By contract, we can only change by a certain number of minutes. So when the new picks come in is when we make the major changes to time points. So if it now takes 7 minutes instead of 4 minutes or 5 minutes to get between these two time points, we'll make those adjustments, but we have to do it at pick time. So our next pick is in December. Our planning department has been working diligently to really look at the actual travel times so we can make those adjustments in our December pick, as well as our operations team working with our new operators. About a third of our operators are new. And one of the things when you look at data, you understand the longer you've been an operator, the better your OTP. About a third of our operators are new. So we're working diligently to help our operators, the little suggestions that we have to help keep them on time. We're working both sides of that equal sign.
Well, I just wanted to make sure we're being fair to ourselves and that measurable, right?
Yes.
As the built environment is changing.
Exactly right. The metric is compared to our schedule that we create. And so as Daryl mentioned, there were some minor tweaks made in September, and there'll be more to come.
Well, and it's important investments in infrastructure because it's good for our riders, because every single one of them who gets on and off the bus is a pedestrian, right? And so, but balancing our operations with the benefit, I'm glad you asked that.
Amen.
And the other side of that, and somebody mentioned it earlier, our ridership is growing. The more people that get on the bus, the longer time before that bus gets to pull off.
Yeah.
So the increased ridership also has an effect on it as well. But again, we're working on both sides of that equal side.
And actually, this last point, that was my biggest concern was I said correlation, I should have said causation around the idea of increased ridership. And then as we strive for increased ridership, the on-time performance metric. Yeah. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Is that?
I think I had asked right before school started if we were going to be collecting data on having to turn down anyone at stops due to the buses being full by the school riders, around those hot times of when,
Yep.
So I was just curious if we had any of that yet. I mean, obviously.
Yes. So there are trips at peak times at some of the schools where the bus at a particular point is at capacity and can't accept any more passengers, right? In almost all of those situations, there's a bus either 10 or 15 minutes behind. So we often see on campuses, sometimes it taking 2 or 3 buses to clear those students. That's going to be the case in terms of the operation. We've seen that adjustment period has happened really well, actually. We've seen students spread out over those 3 trips. We've seen students take maybe another route that they're on the bus for 5 or 10 minutes longer, so it's a less direct route, but they get home sooner because they're not having to wait on a crowded bus. So we constantly monitor it. We constantly get feedback from CPS and from parents about overcrowding situations. I think there are a couple hot spots, but we were addressing one earlier this week that was new to us. So I think overall it's going very well, but our eyes and ears are out for those hot spots.
Definitely are.
Someone who is trying to get to work.
Yep.
And is not one of those school kids.
Yes.
And to have to wait through 3 buses.
Yep.
When they thought they were just gonna, go out and go to work.
Yep.
Yes.
And most of the peak loading that we see does happen on campus, right? Because as soon as that bus leaves a campus, it begins dropping students off, and there's capacity for the folks that are next in line, so to speak. But absolutely, there are tweaks already in the works for some of the routes at some of the hot spots.
Thanks, Bree. Andy, does that conclude your report? Mark, are you going to take us through the ridership report, please? Thanks.
Oh, yep, now it is. Cool. Mark Simon, September 2024 ridership report. So for the month of September, the total fixed route ridership was 1,237,800. Local service carried 1.2 million and 9,000 of that, and express service carried 28,600. Overall, this was on budget for all fixed route service and 0.4% favorable for local, whereas express service was 12.2% unfavorable. And just a note, if we didn't have those storms at the end of the month, it would have been like 1.25 million. So just putting that out there. Ridership continues as a general trend up from the past 4 years. September, October tend to be the higher ridership months in the year, so you can see that on this chart for September. Average weekday ridership was 50,152 passengers, favorable to budget by 0.1%. Average Saturday ridership was 25,273, favorable to budget by 1%. And Labor Day is included in that Saturday. We ran a Saturday service on that Monday. And average Sunday ridership was 21,700, which is slightly unfavorable to budget by 2%.
If I may interject here, there was one day where we had 52,000 just a few days ago. A day, 52,000 passengers. Yeah, although I can't remember when we've hit that number before, if ever.
We're heading towards 60. That's a new goal.
So in the last time it was 52K, I remember the exact day. It was March 3rd, 2020, and was when the ridership had started going up because we started fixing our buses. And then 2 weeks later, it was like, here's the lowest number you've ever seen in your life. Yes. So local service achieved a productivity of 17.5 passengers per hour and a cost recovery rate of 9.9%. Both of those above the KPI or at the KPI. And for express service, we saw a productivity of 8.6 passengers per trip and a cost recovery of 10.3%. Next slide, please.
Will we, on all these KPIs, we assess these as part of our budget process? Do we do that in November, December? When do we? Okay. I think we need to have a serious conversation about our express service KPIs with a couple years of data. We're setting expectations we can't meet.
So for overall, our on-time performance did dip this month to 72.2% for September. Missed trip-wise, in September, there were 444 missed trips, which means we delivered 99.4% of scheduled service. And here you see the missed trips by day, September. And then the next slide shows the average missed trip by day of week. Now, you see those are low because they actually, usually there's a day or two that's way higher than the others, but this month they're all about even. But I didn't change the scale so you could see that. Yeah. Next slide, please. Access. So for our Access paratransit service, the month of September, ridership was 14,663, unfavorable to budget by 7.6%. Total overall weekday ridership was 13,046. Total Saturday was 672, and total Sunday was 945. For annual Access ridership here, you can see, next slide. Here, looking back at the past 4 years. And for on-time performance for Access was 88.5% in September, about the same as last month. Metro Now. So Metro Now's overall ridership was 7,433 riders. Next slide, please. In September between the two zones. The weekday average ridership was about 273 riders. Saturday average ridership was 194. And Sunday average ridership was about 185 riders. And here you see the Springdale-Sharonville area destination heat map. The Woodlawn Kroger continues to be the top destination in this zone. And here you see the Northgate area, Northgate Mount Healthy area map with, I think, 3 major concentrations there: the Clovernook Apartments, Mount Healthy, the Kroger in Hamilton, and the Kroger on Chlorine Avenue being the 3 top spots in this zone. Right. So the remainder of the presentation are route level KPIs. We typically do not go over them in the meeting, but if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you, Mark. Are there any questions for Mark? Neil? Oh, I thought you were pressing your microphone there. Okay, great, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our action item. Andy?
Thank you. We have one action item from a procurement perspective today, and that is for Metro surveys. We do both employee and customer surveys. We're recommending a sole source to C. Robinson and Associates That will help efficiency from both a financial perspective and from a data collection and reporting perspective. We're going to use similar tools, if not same tools, which allow us to accurately show trends over time. You can see the award there at 155. Year-to-date DBE spend is at $7.9 million, which shows our addressable spend participation rate at 15%. Just a couple notes about that. Year-to-date, that $7.9 million is spread over 70 DBE vendors. Last year, that was spread over 40 DBE vendors. And of those 70 vendors, 30% of those vendors are first-time in 2024, first-time vendors to Metro. So a lot of great work being done there. There is an action item here, again, 140-2024. Happy to take any questions from the board.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the contract as outlined by Andy. I'll make a motion to approve the contract as outlined by Andy. Is there a second? Ms. Clark seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you, Andy, for walking us through that. The motion's approved. We have John on our agenda to walk us through that, but we've already approved that, right? So, okay, we're good to go?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is all for existing business. Ms. Clark?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was trying to go through my notes here. I just had a quick question. Mark, I hate to, you may need to come back up, but I just noticed when we were in comparison to the our financial report overlapping our monthly rider for Metro Now, it seems like the numbers they're dipping a little bit, or is that a leveling out just because of capacity? It's kind of at its as much as that new system can take, or what are we?
There are things, times of the year, ridership changes, number of days in a month, ridership changes. The other thing that's really interesting is you expect when it snows to have a ridership dip, but you'll be surprised at what happens when it rains. And one of the things that happened last month is that last week it rained nonstop. This is a new service for us, so we don't understand the changes in times of year and whatnot yet. The longer this goes, the more we'll understand it. We'll continue to market it. We'll continue to pick up new riders. 1 month, I always say, doesn't a trend make, so I wouldn't be concerned about a 1 month dip. We did notice that as well. And we know it's just time to crank it back up again.
One thing. Oh.
I did see that though too, and I did get concerned because we've seen steady growth, pretty much from the start. It is 30-day month, so that was my first thought. Okay, 30-day month, and then you see June. Oh, okay, that growth wasn't as much there. So there's that. It's not a trend. You're right, but I think we're also excited about it. We're gonna watch that.
Well, so a couple thoughts on that. One, I mean, this is service in, by definition, the least dense parts of our system. So there will be some upward ceiling for productivity here, right? Like, and we should be okay with that. I also thinking about, we do cost per passenger on local service. And I'm actually interested in this on both Access and Metro Now over time, because especially as you see Access sort of Access is obviously the most expensive service we provide, but I've wondered for a while if we've been able to drive any of that cost per passenger down, or if we're seeing some of the transfer from Access to Metro Now where it makes sense. I'd just be interested in sort of monitoring cost per passenger on these systems to see, because if anything we can drive from Access to Metro Now or from Metro Now to fixed route, like dramatic savings to the system. So I'd be curious to see that.
And we're actually working on that now, because one of the advantages we have, because we're running Metro Now out of Access, you don't have a separate building, you don't have separate management staff. The same operators that drive Access drive Metro Now. So we're working on how do we break out the expenses from Access from that facility. How do we break out those expenses, partly for Access, partly for Metro Now? we'll get through this process before we do our budget so that we can understand how to budget cost per passenger on Metro now versus Access, because a lot of those resources are shared.
Yeah, if I may add.
Staff is working on that now.
Yeah, exactly. We're working on identifying all of these because it's been running now for over a year, and that's what the staff is working on to establish all of these KPIs. But also on the ridership, the slight dip. To Daryl's point, we noticed that, we're investigating that. It's also related to lack of drivers, the challenge of hiring additional drivers. That's part of the equation. Over the past few months, we made adjustments in terms of scheduling the drivers and so on to make it a little bit more efficient. So that helped over the past few months to take on the additional ridership, right? But as you've seen, ridership has been growing every single day. So with these improvements we made, but riders kept going on, so that put now additional strain on the shifts and so on. So we're trying our best to hire more drivers, but that's another piece of the puzzle that's going to take care of that, because right now there are so many trips that we cannot perform in due time because of lack of enough resources.
We're not concerned about that as of yet. A lot more work to be done.
Any more new business? Okay, thank you everyone for being here. We'll see you next week.